So I will begin now. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Amory Jendrek, and I am here today representing the National Institutes of Health as part of the NIAID Vaccine Research Center, or the VRC. I'd like to start today with a remembrance of a member of our community who has recently passed away, Mr. Richard Postman. Richard Postman was an aeronautical engineer whose work on space-age projects took him through early stages of supersonic flight, spy satellites, and intercontinental ballistic missiles. Sadly, Mr. Postman passed away on April 1st in Silver Spring, Maryland, at the age of 94. With him, we lost many secrets and incredible stories of scientific achievement. Richard Postman was born on June 30th, 1925, in Cedarhurst, New York, on Long Island. He received a Bachelor's of Science in Aeronautical Engineering in 1944 at the University of Michigan. He continued to receive his Bachelor's of Mathematics in 1946 from the same institution, and finally a Master's in Aeronautical Engineering in 1947. He began working with Bell Aircraft on a top-secret development of the X-1 airplane. His work differed significantly from civilian space programs that we all know today. People who worked in civilian space programs, such as the astronauts who went to the moon, were celebrities. They were known for their wonderful achievements in space exploration. Not only were the astronauts themselves famous, but many of the people who worked on the ground doing the background scientific research were also well known. Mr. Postman was not one of these people. His work was top secret. And in fact, it wasn't until the late 90s that much of his work became known. Even growing up, his sons had no idea what their father really did. During the development of the X-2 aircraft at Bell Aircraft, he was chief aerodynamicist, and in fact began working on a third top secret supersonic plane when the government decided to work with Lockheed Martin instead. So Mr. Postman moved to GE, where he began to work on spacecraft. At GE, he created systems that would allow objects that were sent plunging through the atmosphere to withstand the blazing heat of re-entry. One project that he worked on was called Corona. This was the first spy satellite in the United States. Corona took photos of what was happening on Earth, ejected the film in a heat-shielded bucket, pushed this bucket through the atmosphere, where it was then plucked from the air by a military aircraft. Mr. Postman worked on that bucket. He became general manager for space activities at GE, and throughout this entire time, even his wife and his children knew little detail of his work. He was truly a man from a different time. He knew so much, and now all of this is now lost. Unfortunately for us, but luckily for his job, Mr. Postman knew how to keep secrets. Our thoughts are now with his wife, Mrna, and his sons, Henry, Don, and William, and their many grandchildren and great-grandchildren. We'd like to take a brief moment in honor of Mr. Postman. Thank you. It is for Mr. Postman and so many others around the world that we are working tirelessly to develop a vaccine. At the NIAID Vaccine Research Center, we use our broad research experience with coronavirus, and we work in close collaboration with academia, other government agencies, and industry to develop a vaccine candidate. Today, we'd like to give you an update on these efforts. We have more than 60 candidate vaccines in development around the world, and several have entered early clinical trials using human volunteers. We have recently collaborated with Moderna Incorporated, a biotech company in Massachusetts. With Moderna, we are working to develop an investigational messenger RNA vaccine, which was originally designed to prevent MERS, but has been adapted for COVID-19. mRNA vaccines, as they are known, are a new technology. They combine desirable immunological properties with outstanding safety profile and flexibility. Because mRNA is a minimal and only transient carrier of information, it does not interact directly with the genome, which promotes its safety. One of our main focuses of this project is to maximize flexibility of this vaccine so that we can adapt to changes, not only different coronaviruses, but also changes in the specific coronavirus that we are fighting today. This is game-changing technology. mRNA vaccines combine the factors of live attenuated vaccines, including increased T-cell induction, with the safety of killed or subunit vaccines. As of yet, no vaccine built from mRNA has been approved by the FDA, but we would refer you to a 2018 paper by Norbert Pardy et al. For general information on mRNA vaccines, including the technological advances that have made them stable enough to use. One other positive aspect of mRNA vaccines is that they degrade with natural cell processes. As with most other vaccines, including DNA and RNA vaccines, the RNA sequence codes for antigens, proteins that are identical to or resembling the pathogen. Upon delivery of the vaccine, the host cells translate the sequence, produce the encoded antigens, and then stimulate the body's adaptive immune system to produce antibodies. Then, when the immune system comes into contact with actual live and therefore dangerous virus, it has a built-in response. We are happy to announce that phase 1 clinical trial of this vaccine began in March. It is taking place at the Kaiser Permanente Health Research Institute in Seattle, Washington, Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia, and the NIH Clinical Center right here in Bethesda, Maryland. As part of phase 1, this vaccine is given to healthy volunteers to test if it is safe and if it induces an appropriate immune response. Clinical testing does take time. Phase 1 will test 3 different dose levels. We are using dose levels of 25, 100, and 250 micrograms. These doses will be administered in a 2-dose schedule, 28 days apart. For the beginning of the phase 1 clinical trial, we have recruited 45 healthy adults ages 18 to 55, and we will be following them for 12 months. Our primary objective is to determine the safety of the vaccine, as well as the immediate reaction to the vaccine. Our secondary objective is to determine the immune response to the SARS-CoV-2 proteins. This is the first step, and we are actively preparing for a potential phase 2 following the results of phase 1. In fact, after we received the initial safety review, we have decided to expand our phase 1 clinical trial. On April 17th, we added 60 more individuals. We have 30 volunteers between the ages of 56 and 70, and 30 volunteers who are over 71. We are hoping that this will help us to better understand the safety of the vaccine and the response in older populations, those populations who we know are more at risk. We are hoping that after this, we will move into phase 2. Now, to be prudent, I will tell you that there may be a phase 2, a phase 2B, and a phase 3 clinical trials, and all of this only if phase 1 is successful. Luckily, we have been given the go-ahead by the FDA to fast-track any vaccine candidate that seems promising. This means that instead of taking 18 months of testing, 12 months will be sufficient. To give you an idea of the different phases, phase 1 is, as I said, to determine safety and the dosage of the vaccine. Phase 2 would be a larger trial involving up to 300 people. And in phase 2, we will look for biological activity and to see if neutralizing antibodies are present and are present in appropriate numbers. Phase 3, if phase 1 and 2 are successful, will involve hundreds of thousands of people. After that, we will move into questions of production. We are very happy to announce that the Gates Foundation has agreed to fund the construction of factories for 7 coronavirus vaccine candidates. Now we know that the FDA will likely only approve 2 or 3 vaccines, but because construction takes a significant amount of time, the Gates Foundation has said that they will set up 7 factories so that as soon as approval comes through, production can begin. It is important to note that because of this long process, COVID-19 vaccine will likely not be widely available to the public until sometime in 2021. Of course, trial data will be disseminated to public health officials and our partners as soon as possible, and will be included in scientific publications and presentations so that we can inform the global scientific community of our progress. But this is not the only vaccine in development in the US. NIAID scientists at Rocky Mountain Laboratories are collaborating with investigators at Oxford University to develop an adenovirus-vectored vaccine candidate to fight COVID-19. Adenoviruses are commonly used to deliver cancer gene therapy and are employed extensively as vaccines. They induce a strong T-cell response, which makes it a promising candidate to fight COVID-19. NIAID-supported scientists are also working to see if candidate vaccines developed for SARS are effective to fight COVID-19. And we are seeing if other vaccine candidates developed for MERS may do the same job. We do have one candidate vaccine that has shown success in early animal testing, and once we are able to complete and review these tests, we can move to human trials. We are working with partners in labs around the world, and we want to be sure that with any vaccine, there is no antibody-dependent enhancement. We do not want to leave the body more vulnerable to severe illness after inoculation. We've seen this in many candidate vaccines for dengue virus. It generates low levels of antibodies that then guide the virus to vulnerable cells so that people who have been inoculated are much more likely to become sick. We are hoping, and we are very hopeful, that we will be successful in finding a vaccine, even if it takes a great deal of time. We will continue to work tirelessly. In the meantime, we do have some promising information regarding effective treatments against the virus, and my colleagues will discuss this when they take the podium. For more information on what I have just covered, we ask you to visit the NIAID website. You can look at the March 16th press release, the March 27th statement. You can also visit clinicaltrials.gov and search for the identifier NCT04283-461. We are no longer seeking volunteers ages 18 to 55 for the trial for the Moderna Incorporated vaccine. However, adults over 55 in Atlanta, Bethesda, or Seattle should go to NIAID.nih.gov for information on who to contact to participate in the phase 1 clinical trial. Our thoughts and prayers at this time go out to those who have lost loved ones and those who are still fighting this virus. We would also like to spare a moment to think of those who are working on the front lines and in labs around the world. And we hope that by working together, we can find a vaccine that will allow us to control this virus. Thank you very much.